Hello again, this is Brian Copeland talking. Welcome to another edition of Copeland's Corner. If all goes well, we'll be joined in a little bit by a distinguished panel of comics, and we'll talk about some of the news of the week. Just real quick, this is recorded on Wednesday and we drop on Thursday. So last night, Tuesday night, the Democrats had a big night in the off-year election. Pretty much anywhere that abortion rights and reproductive rights were on the ballot, Democrats won. Ohio, despite all of the dirty tricks that the GOP tried in order to keep people from voting, to try to keep a measure off the ballot, they were able to codify abortion rights into the state constitution. In Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, the governor of that state, has made it clear that he would sign a 15-week ban on abortion. So you couldn't get one after 15 weeks. So as a result of that, the legislature, the lower house legislature flipped from a Republican to Democrat, and they increased their majority. Democrats increased their majority in the higher house. So this is a winning thing for the Democrats and a losing issue for the Republicans. And they are doing everything they can to try to make abortion illegal, restrict reproductive rights, but they don't want to talk about it to the voters. And the fact of the matter is, when you look at the polling, it's like 70% of Americans are opposed to the overturning of Roe v. Wade. 70% of Americans think that women should have the right to decide what's going to happen with their own bodies. So we'll see how this shakes out as far as 2024 is concerned. But in some places last night, if there was a measure on the ballot that had to do with abortion, or there was a hardcore anti-choice candidate who was running as the Republican standard bearer, pretty much up and down the line on that ballot, Democrats won. So again, we'll see how this shakes out in 2024. This is the part of the podcast we call Headliners on the Headlines. Joining me this week, Greg Proops, from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Don Reed from Pretty Much Everything, here joining us this week. I'm sorry with you, Greg. We were talking off the air. You're in Austin, and you were saying that it's hot and it's conservative. I thought Austin was supposed to be like the blue spot in a red state.
Well, yeah, I think Austin is the blue spot in Texas. And what's ironic, of course, is that the governor and the AG are here, and the lieutenant governor, who are as right of old fascists as exist in America. No, my problem with Texas is everybody's nice as can be. I really enjoy it here. And then every white person you look at, they voted for Trump. And I'm sorry, but that's how I feel on the road, man. I get on the road and people are nice as can be. I prefer the Southwest and the South to the Midwest. I'll be honest. I have nothing against the Midwest. I think a few days in Iowa is enough really to last you a while.
Ooh. I used to play the Laugh Stop. I used to play Laugh Stop in fact, I did an interview with Renee Zellweger years ago, and she kept saying to me, "I know you. Where do I know you from? I know you." And I don't, this is all she'd done was Jerry Maguire, so I kind of like blew her off.
Right.
Then she comes back. I did. It was like we had Meryl Streep on, and they were doing a movie together. And in order to get Meryl Streep, we had to take Renee Zellweger, and nobody knew who she was. And she kept going, "I know you. I know you." I'm like, yeah. And she goes back and goes, "I know where I know you from. When I was in college, I used to come and watch you play the Laugh Stop in Austin."
Oh, wow.
See? And that made so she'd go to U of A of Texas, whatever it's called here.
Yeah. Apparently.
So, I did not know that. I thought she was from Texas, but isn't she Finnish?
That I'm not sure.
I believe her mother is. Anyway, that's really cool that Renee Zellweger remembered you from the club. My greatest person that remembered me ever from a stand-up wig was Shirley Manson from Garbage. I met her at a party once, and she went, "I used to go see you at the Edinburgh Festival," because she's from Aberdeen. And I was like, "I love you." And I thought, oh my God, I'm that much older than her.
I'm curious. I'll put this out. I'll put this out to both of you. Have you ever met anyone at a gig who was somebody you really like despised, or just, I mean, like, like Trump showing up to your gig and wanting to shake your hand backstage afterwards, because we've all done some big gigs, and I've been fortunate that there's been nobody like that I had to fake, that, that I had any respect for. Has that happened to either one of you?
It happened to me at the Tonight Show. I was backstage, and the Secret Service stopped me for a second, and
what?
George W. Bush was coming into the building. Not the sitting, but they give him lifetime security.
Yeah.
And he walked back there, and a photographer took his picture, and he shook the photographer's hand, and he turned to me to shake my hand, but I didn't want to make any quick moves. So I just, what's up,
no
man?
Kidding.
And I walked off, and I didn't vote for him anyway, so it was okay.
Has that happened to you, Greg?
Well, I remember I have a lot of friends who've met a lot of Titanic Nazis over the years, and they've been nice and polite to them. You always ask yourself, what would I do in that situation? Like if I met Trump or whatever, would I just tell? Obviously you're not going to tell people to, go to hell or whatever the minute you meet them, because it's, you're in a social situation. I'm trying to think of someone that I really disliked intensely. Not particularly. I met a couple of stars who were really, almost every star ever has been so super nice to me, but Tilda Swinton was a gigantic bummer.
Really?
And
really?
Yeah, I was doing a film festival event in Scotland, and I was hosting. The head of the film festival asked me to host. So I went, let's hear, it was, I'll tell you what year it was. American Splendor with Paul Giamatti and Hope Davis, that Harvey Pekar comic book movie. Anyway, I was like, here's Tilda Swinton. She came up on stage, and I went, hi, like this, and put my hand out. And she,
no.
Yes. And so I went like this in front of everyone.
Oh.
And I wished I'd done it now, of course, but it would have been horrible at the time. Tilda, I said hi. Because I really did say hi, and she
just ignored you. All right, now I'll tell you my experience like that was when I was touring with Smokey Robinson. Part of one of the tours we did was with Gladys Knight, which was an amazing show. We played something like 12 cities, and we ended up at the Universal Amphitheater. And so for 10 of those 12 shows that we did, the way it went was I would go on and do 20. And then Gladys Knight would go on and do, 45 minutes, whatever. And then Smokey would come on and do whatever he felt like doing. So I would stand backstage after my set and watch Smokey, and Gladys Knight would stand right next to me, surrounded by her entourage, and she never acknowledged my existence.
Oh, no, really?
She never, literally, she's standing next to me and never acknowledged my existence that whole time. And then finally, I kind of nudged one of the guys aside, and I said, hi, Ms. Knight, I'm the one who's been opening for you every night. And she just shook my hand coldly and said, hi. And that was it. That was it. And that was 10 shows in. That was 10 shows in.
I love Gladys Knight.
I do too. But that was just weird. It was just
right. Why not just go, hey, I thought, even if he didn't see you, hey, really funny.
Yeah, it's just, you never know what you're going to get when you're working with stars. It's what they say. Never meet your heroes. Sometimes. Never meet your heroes.
I got some other ones, but I'm not going to tell them.
Yeah, I've got some too. I'll tell you off the air.
All right, I'll tell you one quick one. Canadian comic who I knew opened for Ray Charles in Canada on a tour, right? Did like a couple weeks with him. And they made him come in and do his routine, right? No profanity, family, blah, blah, blah. Right. So he said he got up, Ray Charles and the entourage sitting there, and did his 15 or whatever. And they were like, fine, you're in. And Ray Charles went, come here, leave the women alone.
I got a story like that.
Yeah, you do.
I opened for Ray Charles.
I know who with too. I know this.
You know this stuff? I told you this story.
Is this the Julio Iglesias one?
Oh, you know that story too?
No, I love that. You, I can't remember what you told me.
Oh, okay.
The bullpen of women.
I'll just say Latinx.
Yeah.
This is about, my son's 28. My youngest boy's 28. And it was when my ex-wife was pregnant with him. And the insurance, for whatever reason, didn't cover it, and it was going to cost $5,000 that I had to pay in order to have this baby delivered. So I was with William Morrison. My agent calls me and says, "I got you a gig. I got your baby paid for. It's you're going to be opening for Julio Iglesias at Donald Trump's Taj Mahal in Atlantic City, and it pays $10,000 for 3 shows." for 15 minutes each night. And I go, I was getting like 3, 4, 5. I go, why is it so much? And he said, because nobody's in the audience speaks English. And I go, well, why is you like Paul Rodriguez or somebody?
Right.
I got it for you because I know you need the money. Just go ahead and do it. So I go, and sure enough, it's all Puerto Rican, the whole audience. And it was 15 minutes of no one listening. I mean, literally, they're talking, no one's listening because they don't speak the language. It was horrible. I had 15 minutes of material that ended up being done in 5 because there's no laughs. So I get that up. It's 3 nights. And the second night, I get introduced to, I didn't meet Julio Iglesias the first night. Second night, I meet him, and I'm standing outside his dressing room, and he's got chairs lined up. There are chairs lined up on both sides of his dressing room door, and there are all these young bimbettes, with the short skirts and the cha-chas hanging out and all of this stuff. And he would come out and go, you and you, and they would go, and then the others would disperse. And so when I met him that night, I go, hi, Mr. Iglesias, I'm your opening act. I'm Brian Copeland. And he says, don't touch my girls. Hey, girls. And I go, okay.
Don't touch my girls. With the accent.
Don't touch my girls.
Don't
Amor,
touch my girls.
amor. What a creep. There, I said it.
All right, so let's jump into it. I'm actually gonna start with this. The Bay Area has reinstated mask orders in healthcare settings. I am just recovering from COVID. I had it last week. I don't know where I caught it. I hope I was out doing a shoot for a nonprofit on Halloween where I was doing like a man on the street thing, talking to people, and I know now I was positive at that time, and I hope to God I didn't get anybody sick. But it was outside, so I'm hoping that's okay. That nobody got sick, but I was down for about 5 days, 6 days. Right now I've tested negative. I'm still staying home for a couple of days afterwards because I'm still, I'm a little stuffy, a little congested. But here's what it is. I'm curious about with you guys. Are you concerned about catching it now? Because like I have it in all of my contracts that my audiences have to be masked. I got a 1-year-old baby granddaughter who I babysit, and I do not want to bring her anything. And so I make sure that all of my audiences have to be masked. Now, are you guys concerned about catching something, especially you, Greg, because you're playing? Well, how big are the venues you guys are playing with the Whose Line Is It Anyway tour?
We play pretty big venues, like anywhere from 800 to 700 to 2,000. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of 1,100, 1,500 seaters. And the masking stopped in, the end of 2021, beginning, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When 2022 started, it was over everywhere. They masked in California and the West Coast and the Northeast. And, of course, it never existed in Florida or Texas or anywhere like that. It simply didn't exist. Democrats invented it in a lab in China. But I wear a mask on the plane, and I can't get the audience to mask because they just won't. It's over now. And I'm still concerned about getting it because I have lots of conditions. I'm 1,000. And also, I don't want to, like you said, Brian, 2 years ago, I did a New Year's week at San Francisco Punchline, and they were really good about it. They tested everybody. They made everybody have a card. They made everybody test, the staff and everything. Mm-hmm. But my worst fear was that I would get it and give it to the audience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they'd go, oh, because you remember DL Hewley's show and all the
sure.
fucking comics who went out and 40 people get COVID at Greg's show. That's like, I just thought, oh God, So I'm still concerned about it, that it's real hard to get the world on that now. And now there's an even more, I'm sure you've seen on social media, idiots are still like, hey, don't let them put the mask mandate back because they're, on freedom and whatnot. Like, you guys. So that's my answer. I wish I could have more control over it, but the venues that we're playing with Whose Line, there's no way they're gonna all of a sudden. But I see people with masks in the audience.
Those who choose to, yeah. How about you, Don? I mean, because we're all playing places where there's no ventilation. You got crowds that are packed in with no ventilation, and people are breathing for 2 hours. Are you concerned about it? As I said, like when I play the Marsh and stuff, all the places where I'm doing shows, the people know when they buy their tickets, you got to be masked. You got to be masked.
Yeah. I'm still presently aware that Particularly, I was riding the train a lot from the Bay Area to LA, the Amtrak train.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people who voted in a different direction on trains for some reason.
Yeah.
Older folks are on there. And I know some of them didn't even get vaccinated. So I'm more careful there than I am in the Bay Area venues. Although I'm aware of at the end of shows, I'm very clear on more fist bumping than the hugging I used to do.
Sure.
Very aware that I'm wearing a mask when it gets super crowded at the end of a show when people are coming up, that as well. But I saw something very interesting the other day. You know how you wear a mask inside of a store, you leave and you let it hang, like you finally getting outside and you give the relief off that pressure on your ears to let the mask hang on one side. Yeah. I saw a guy leave a store and he took it off and let it hang. He had something in his right hand. So while he was walking, the wind blew the mask off. The guy spun in a circle, hooked the mask and put it back on his ear and kept walking, which I thought was very, very, very cool. Isn't that pretty cool? Pretty cool, right? Yeah, that was me. I did that. But nobody was there, so I'm telling you guys right now.
So you're telling you're bragging about it. Like you were a gunslinger or something. You were able to get all this. Well,
right.
You know, the red states, you know, you're talking about Iowa, the red states are just it's a whole different world. Like I got a friend who I visit in Scottsdale a couple of times a year. And I think I've told the story on the podcast before that, you know, I wear a mask, you know, basically I stay at a hotel about a mile from his house. I get an Uber to his house, and because you can't walk when it's 110 degrees outside. So I Uber over and stay with him all day. And then I Uber back to my hotel. So an Uber comes for me and I have my mask on. I mask everywhere there if I'm out. And so I get in the Uber with my mask on, and the driver says, "You don't have to wear a mask in here. You don't have to do that, man. I'm fine. I'm perfectly okay. My wife and I, we take our ivermectin every day."
Oh, no.
We take our ivermectin every day. And at first
Good luck in the Preakness.
So it's just, rather than what the CDC says, I will take horse dewormer, you know, and that's going to protect me from getting, it's just, I feel, you know, you got so many folks who are brainwashed, you know, and that's the only word I can use to describe it is brainwashed. I mean, I'm looking, you see the polls that have come out in the last couple of days, that in 5 out of 6 battleground states, Trump is ahead of Biden. Explain that to me. Can you possibly explain that to me other than brainwashing? The guy's got 91 criminal indictments, 91 criminal charges against him, 4 indictments, 4 trials that are coming up. So can you explain to me how and why, number one, why Biden would be behind? Number 2, why does Biden have an approval rating that's only like in the 30s?
They don't believe it. I don't think they believe it. I don't think they actually think this falls in line with what he's saying, that it's trumped up charges, that it's a witch hunt. They're really believing that, which is insane to me. That's all I can say. I mean, really.
I don't know, Brian. I mean, I see these polls too, but I think the polls are skewed because a lot of times they really want the results they want. Like, for instance, yesterday's election, which went completely Democrats' way almost everywhere except Mississippi, where even in Mississippi, Brandon Presley did pretty well. But you may have noticed that the Black people had to stand in line for 5-7 hours and they ran out of ballots 5 times.
Yep.
That's not a coincidence. That's old school, man. That's old school.
No,
it's what Fannie Lou Hamer, you know, put her life on the line for. But I think the polls are skewed because I think whatever method they're using, they're always trying to push forward the narrative that Biden's unpopular. And last night, I think you saw that Biden's popular. Nobody who voted against abortion in Ohio and nobody who voted for Governor Beshear in Kentucky is going to turn around and go, you know, I've been thinking about it. And I think if I vote for Trump, it'll really balance out what I just did. On the other hand, there's no discounting white supremacy in this country ever, because we were born in it. And it's something that white people are as proud of as if they'd raised it as a pony. You know what I mean? They just can't let it. I'm telling you guys. But I mean, you know, like that I think is the driving force behind the media and the driving force behind all these polls is they really want you to feel that. And I don't think it's correct. I think Biden did really well last time. And I think particularly you're talking about Pennsylvania, Nevada,
Arizona.
Arizona, which elected 2 Democratic senators. And my family's from Arizona. To have 2 Democratic senators from Arizona is lunacy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah, sure. I mean, this is
it can
McCain
happen,
country.
right? I mean, it can happen. So I don't think they're right. I don't think the polls are right. I understand your concern, but also last night made me feel pretty warm inside. Like now it's what, Ohio, Oklahoma, Kansas. What are the other 2? Oh, Montana. All went pro-choice. You know what I mean? Like, and those are rednecks, man. Those are rednecks.
I got a question. How much along the lines of skewing, how much of this is there's no story if they don't skew? There's no story if they say, if you look at the real numbers and the proof is in the pudding in terms of the blue that succeeded yesterday. How much of this has to be, we don't have a headline. We don't have a story that, oh my God, there's a battle here. If we do not,
they got to make it a horse race. They got to make it a horse race in order to get clicks and to get eyeballs to watching it on television. Yeah, I mean, 'cause I guess it depends on who it is. With these polls, it depends on who you're talking to. If you were going to poll only in red states and ask who you're voting for, well, of course it's going to come out one way. If you're only going to poll in blue states, of course it's going to come out one way. So there are lots of ways that you can skew a poll. But these are legitimate, the New York Times and Gallup, these are legitimate polling organizations.
Here's the notion too. And this is, like purely anecdotal, but for instance, when Hillary ran before, it was decided that Obama was the nominee, a lot of people who supported Hillary wouldn't say they did because they were afraid to be humiliated by their friends and family. And I think a lot of places in the country, if you don't say you're going Trump, you know what I mean? You can't say it at work. You have to hide in the ballot box in the voting booth, and then vote your conscience and stuff, So I'm guessing there might be a certain amount of that. But I think what Don said is absolute. Someone tweeted today, the narrative won't die. No matter what facts are thrown at the narrative. Biden won in 2020, going away. It wasn't even, it was close over 4 states or whatever, but his electoral count was,
millions ahead of Trump.
The midterms did not go their way. Every special election that's been held in the last 2 years has absolutely not gone their way. New Jersey went back Democrat yesterday. Virginia went back Democrat after having a tidal wave of nonsense 2 years ago. The narrative that Biden's unpopular and that he can't win is a narrative the media just nothing was as good for them as 45. The chaos. Also, everyone who owns a giant media corporation, how do I put this delicately? It's not a warm, wonderful, caring human being who hears the sound of poor children crying and whose heart is moved. They are, in fact, they do you remember when Stephen Miller's wife, I can't remember her name, you remember Stephen Miller, the one
sure.
the psychopath, he's what we call in Yiddish a shonda for the goyim, and his wife said that someone took her down to the refugee camps to see all the children in cages, which people forget that happened for 4 years.
Sure did.
And the 500,000 people that died under Trump, and no one called him a genocidist. She took her down to see the children in cages and said, once you see these children in the cages, it'll really change your mind. And her response was, I went and it didn't.
Wow.
I thought, okay.
Wow.
You're being honest, but that's what we're dealing with here.
You remember when he separated children from their parents at the border, who are crossing the border, that there are still children who are they have no idea who they are. I mean, all these years later, there's still children who are separated from their mom and dad, and babies separated from 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, separated from their parents at the border. And they say the cruelty was really the point, because they believe that'll be a deterrent from other people who were escaping warlords and gangs.
I was going to say,
drug
nothing's
lords,
going to deter you if there's a grenade
you know.
launcher aimed at your house.
Exactly. You know, so it's just Hillary Clinton was on The View this morning.
Yeah.
And she made a direct comparison between Trump and Hitler. She said during the first term, you know, you look at all the things that he did in the first term, and he hired people who he appointed people he thought would be with him and whatever it is, crazy ass shit he wanted to do. And they acted as guardrails. They acted as guardrails, and they you know, had integrity and refused to do it. Even people we vehemently disagree with politically, at least they said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be a party to this. Well, what's going to happen if he's reelected is he's only going to appoint people who have no moral compass whatsoever and will do whatever he tells them to do. So she says that this is, you see this in banana republics and in third world countries where someone is elected in a free and fair election, and then once they get in, they try to get rid of elections so that they can stay in power. And that's exactly what's going to happen. She said it really is democracy on the ballot next year.
They go all the way autocratic once they get in. So check this out. Here's the thing I have the most promise for that I'm aware of, with my ear to the ground with my sons who are 28 and 25 and involved in the music industry in a very solid fashion in terms of return. One of my son creative consults for a Complex magazine that covers a lot of hip hop, things of that nature. There is a wave of rappers who never voted in their lives who are engaged in politics now. And those folks have a huge amount of influence on other young people. I think we're going to see, in numbers we never expected, young people who are going to follow the route of Lil Baby and some of these other people that I never voted before, but I'm voting now. This is really important. They make a lot of fun of Kylie Jenner. Kylie Jenner posts some very clear and distinct things about ways to vote. She has, I think 100 million followers or something on Instagram. Those young people are 18 plus, 21 years old, 22, are listening. They might not even know the full impact of the issues, but they're willing to go, oh, this is right. They understand their friend is trans. That friend, you know, might need an abortion, and they're going to go that way. So I think that's a swell that we're not expecting that's going to show up en masse.
Well, Taylor Swift did the same thing. You know, Taylor Swift has come out Democratic and vote against the GOP, and she tweeted for her followers to go out and register to vote like 2 weeks ago, and it's record numbers. It's like 13,000 a day. 13,000 young people who've never registered to vote before a day are registering because Taylor Swift told them to. So maybe it'll be the Gen Zers who save us.
I think it's sensational she did that. My only regret with her is that she didn't do it in 2016 because her parents basically talked her out of it. According to her, she said she wanted to support Hillary, Hillary in 2016. And that they were like, but honey, the rednecks will, you know, leave the building. And she, oh, okay. And then she started to be more of a Democrat. It really, you know, Nina Simone said, an artist is supposed to reflect their times. And anytime anyone gives me and I'm sure you guys get this, hey, why don't you stick to the comedy?
Yo,
the most
shut up and dribble. Shut up and dribble.
Patronizing, like, look, I pay taxes, bro. 1 and 2, I read the news. I'm real up on what's going on. So the whole idea that I'm not entitled to opinion because I'm a buffone, you know, and I admit it, I'm a vaudeville clown, but I'm still entitled to my goddamn opinion. And moreover, the public's entitled to my opinion as well.
Did you see that story that entitled to it? Did you see that story that who the hell is it? James Woods is suing the DNC for ruining his career.
Man.
So he's been tweeting and spouting off just ridiculous right-wing crazy ass stuff for 4 or 5 years now, and so nobody wants to hire him, and he says that's the fault of the DNC.
Right? I love it.
Get apart.
I love the idea, one, that right-wing people aren't in show business. Hello, they own all the companies, and a lot of the producers are, and many of the performers are too. Secondly, there's more perverts and predators or as many in show business as there is, maybe more, because there's more to, grazing. It's like the idea that James Woods got singled out at the age of 74 or whatever, and that the DNC was sitting, Jamie Harrison took a call, Yeah, you remember the guy from The Way We Were? Mm-hmm. I liked him in the onion field. Click.
The onion field. That's it.
Remember the guy from
kibosh
Blow?
on him. But the kibosh on him. Wait, and they all play victim. Dean Cain, who played Superman in Lois and Clark.
They're all victims, right? They're all victims.
He's a victim of it. Chachi has left California and moved to Florida because he just can't stand the liberalism in California anymore. And it's like, don't let the Golden Gate hit you in the ass on the way out. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. I think. But you know what?
I'm here in Austin. Rogan has a club here in Austin. He moved to Texas. Yeah, his show used to be in Los Angeles. He lived in LA for years. We all knew Joe when he lived in LA. It's like, he has a club here. What
happened to him? Well, I mean, I worked with the Cobbs back in the 90s and early 2000s, and he was doing brilliant political commentary, I thought.
That's a smart guy.
What the hell happened to him?
I think he went for the big money, Brian, and that incel kind of bro-tastic. They're not Nazis. They're like supplement taking left-wing Nazis. You know what I mean? As my wife always says, the horseshoe where Nazis and Bernie bros meet. I mean, but he's, I don't know that he's a Bernie bro, but like there's this whole we're not allowed to say what we want to say thing going on with him. And it's like he has an audience of several million people every day.
Yeah.
And no one is telling him what not to say. So it's not that valid of a point. So his club here in Austin is like, hey, I'm going to get on and fucking say what I've never had anyone at any club tell me not to say anything. I've had the audience let me know they didn't appreciate it. Mm-hmm. But I've never had a club go, Greg, about that George W. Bush routine, it was a little harsh.
I've had a couple of clubs tell me not to say that something I said in the first show, not to say, and it was
Vegas once. The guy gave me a speech anyway.
Yeah.
People don't come here for fucking CNN. This is a fucking comedy, right? He gave me that one.
I got one of those kind of
tell fucking jokes.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's the speech that I got. And it was a casino situation. Yeah. It was a casino situation. So.
All right, someone did tell me at a casino.
Not to.
He was wearing an American flag tie, by the way. The guy who told me people come here and have a good time, Greg. I know you're like a fanatic or whatever, but listen.
Not to go off tangent, but I remember a time when I was on the college circuit in around 91, 92, going to East College. I was one of the few Black guys doing a ton of colleges at the time. And I was in Kentucky, and I'd been to a number of schools. A lot of times there was like, the athletes in the back of the room that were Black, and the other 600 students were white. And I'd done a number of schools, and I got to the next school. And at that time I was working squeaky, ridiculously, obnoxiously clean. So I was never even saying damn or hell. And I got to the school, and the woman said, so understand at the last school you were cussing. So I want to let you know that we're not going to have any of that. I said, 1,000,000,000%, I cuss zero. I cuss zero. And I did at that time. I said, so I don't know. She said, no, we heard someone called me from the previous. I said, who called you? Who called you? Well, I said, I want you to give me the name of the person who said I cussed at the last school. I think this might have something more to do with what I look like.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Have a good show. And she didn't say anything else. But it's one of those moments of being spoken to before the performance that wasn't even real. She manufactured, like, this guy's Black, he's probably going to cuss.
So right. See, if that were me and somebody had done that to me and I'd been working clean, as soon as I hit the stage, I'd have dropped an F-bomb. The first word out of my mouth is, hey, it's F, great to see you guys. It's good to be here. That's exactly what it was I want to do. Right. On a tangent, you're talking about what it is you look like. I read an article in, I want to say it was either The Atlantic or Slate this morning, that there are a number of African Americans who are leaving the country and moving to the Caribbean, moving to Europe, because they say that there's nothing in America for them. Blacks are twice as likely to be killed by the police. African Americans make less money than whites do for comparable work. And, we were always taught this, by my parents, I have to work twice as hard to get half as far. And so I work twice as hard. But even that in a lot of cases is not enough. And so they're, with the MAGA extremism and everything else, they're leaving the country. So do you think that they're overreacting? Do you think it's an overreaction?
I believe I have no intentions of leaving, none whatsoever. So I would kind of say it is. But some people I've been aware of on Instagram are doing it for a financial break as well. Some people I know who work in IT and in ways that way they could live anywhere are going to Belize and San Juan, Puerto Rico, and some other spots to live because they can live that way. And a dinner out for two people with cocktails is $30. And so they're making that move for, how did that even happen? But that's it,
Well, I mean, I can understand the pressure. Like a couple of years ago, I can't remember, was it Missouri was listed as a place that's like physically dangerous for Black people to live. And I have friends in Missouri that are Black, and it's like, I understand the impetus to want to go in this country because it's always been so awful. But I would say that maybe in the Caribbean, it's slightly different. Europe's not exactly a wonderland of open-mindedness as much as people. I love Europe and I go there all the time.
Yeah,
and,
you do.
But I Scandinavia has got some serious Nazi issues.
Really?
Almost every country in Europe. I mean, like, for instance, look what's going on in England now, these giant protests about Israel and whatnot. And I lived in England for 5 years. And I mean, this is off the topic, but a little bit on the topic. It was the only place I've ever lived where in the newspaper or on TV, they would call someone Jewish when describing them. So they go, there was a talk show host in the morning named Vanessa Feltz in the old days in the 90s, and they would call her Jewish talk show host. And so their anti-Semitism has been bubbling under the surface. I don't know if you know who Jeremy Corbyn was, the leader of their Labour Party. Yeah. He finally resigned after he lost to Boris Johnson in an election. Mind you, they've had, 2 PMs since him. I mean, Britain changes PMs like Italy now. And he was a noted anti-Semite, and he was driven from his party, and he's no longer a member of parliament, and he's no longer the head of the Labour Party because his anti-Semitism got out of hand. And it's just like, so the idea that another country is going to be better, it'll be different.
Yeah, it'll be different. Yeah.
That the main thing about leaving America that I love is that it's not America. Even in Canada, England, France, Italy, whatever, or the Caribbean, which is a fabulous, every country in the Caribbean is different too. I mean, the French countries are different than the English ones, and the American ones are a little more trashy, like America. And, the colonial influence in all those places really dictates what's going on there. But I don't know, Brian, it's such it takes you back to like Marcus Garvey, you know what I mean? And like the whole idea that we make enslaved people build a country, and then we treat them awful, and then ask them to stay and make everything okay. And if it wasn't for Black voters, this country would be in a deep fucking mess. I mean,
if it weren't for Black women voters,
Black women voters are who I go. On my little podcast, my wife and I have been talking about it for years. I always urge people to listen to other voices. And by that, I mean, stop listening to your fucking idiotic friends, 1. And 2, Black women made it through the 2008 election, the 2012 election, the 2016 election, and the 2020 election without being, they were subject to the same propaganda and lies that all of us were. And Black women were able to go, no. So why is it that the Democrats have a messaging problem always? It's because white people can't hear shit, and they won't listen to what Black women, when Black women say, this guy's a crook, I have to know this. The safety of my family depends on it. The safety of my livelihood depends on it. The safety of my world depends on compromising and voting for people that are going to do the least damage. And sometimes they're good people like Joe Biden or, VP Harris or Barack Obama, who are admirable people with good intentions. They really are. They're not creepy politician creeps.
We'll go back to Alabama. I mean, go back to that Senate race with Roy Moore. Remember Roy Moore? All that stuff came out about him and young girls and
for teenage
girls and the whole thing. And he was running against Doug Jones, in Alabama to get elected as a Democrat. You really, for a Republican to lose to a Democrat in Alabama, you really got to mess up. And they say it was black women who elected Doug Jones. Because Roy Moore otherwise would have won, because just the fact there was an R after his name, it didn't matter to a lot of people that he was picking up teenage. He was hanging around the junior high schools.
At the mall.
Oh, at the mall. That's right.
At the mall.
That's right.
He was banned from the mall. Doug Jones was a noted civil rights attorney and had a very illustrious career defending people's rights. And then they put Tommy Tuberville in, who's like maybe the stupidest person in the Senate. I mean, it's a toss-up.
He's a football coach, right?
In Alabama. If Louis Gohmert and Matt Gaetz are the stupidest, or Marjorie Taylor Greene are the stupidest people in the Congress, I would think Tuberville is pretty close to the stupidest person in the Senate. Also, completely, and I don't want to sound like Mr. Paranoid, I live in a van or whatever, but he's bought and sold. Whoever bought and sold him. The reason why he's not approving all these generals and everything isn't because there's some legitimate gripe. It's that it creates chaos and makes the country weaker, which is everything Republicans want to do. They want
to burn it down. That's the whole MAGA thing, is they want to burn the whole thing down. They don't care.
Only a privileged Nazi white person wants to burn everything down. There, I've said it. Anyone who has anything or fought for anything their entire life doesn't want everything burned down. They want the things to work so that we can all have. It's like the whole defund the police thing. Like, police departments are utterly corrupt and racist. There's no question about that. And they do need to be fired and then rehired and go through a process. It's not happening as fast as it ought to. But the idea that you don't want a police department, that's who only a dumbass Bernie bro would want.
Well, I see. Here's the thing: like we had, where I live, there was a defund the police movement, and I just think it's being misunderstood. Defund the police didn't mean take the entire budget away from the police. What defund the police meant was take a portion of the budget, put it towards mental health resources and people who they can call when there's a mental health crisis, as opposed to sending the police. You can get somebody to talk somebody down and get them into a mental health facility, or commit them if necessary. Because we had in the city where I live, we had a shooting of a mentally ill person who was having a mental crisis, and he got shot to death in a unarmed and shot to death in a Walmart parking lot. And so there was a defund the police movement. I think the city council voted for it to go ahead and do it, and it was just to take a portion of the budget and use the budget towards mental health resources. It didn't mean let's completely zero out the budget for the entire police department so that we have no cops. At least that's how it was here. Now, I can't speak nationwide, but that's my understanding about what defund the police meant.
You're absolutely right. And they did it in West Hollywood too, where they let go 4 LA County sheriffs they were using, and they redirected the funds to have actual counselors deal with people on the street.
Right.
Because in Hollywood, like everywhere in California, there's so many people without homes that you're running into a situation every 2 seconds, and they use the cops to deal with them and the sheriff. And that's exactly not who should be dealing with people who live on the street. They need all kinds of counseling and all kinds of support that the police department isn't.
They're not trained for this.
My point was the Republicans will make it. If you say the words defund the police, they have made it so that the media and everybody erects immediately and doesn't. The subtlety you're talking about of the gradations of taking part of the funding and using it for something useful gets lost in the fucking mix. And all it turns into is what?
Yeah, the language around that isn't correct. It needs to be a different phrase around the redirection of funding that can stick in people's heads. Something I saw that's brilliant, that Bart's been under a lot of focus based on things that happened at Fruitvale Station and Oscar Grant.
And actually, mention people who don't know, because we people all over the country and actually other parts of the world listen to or watch this podcast. BART is Bay Area Rapid Transit. It's basically our subway. system
Yeah.
in the Bay Area.
And the breakthrough thing I'm seeing there is they've taken some of that funding for the police force and directly placed it on people in uniform, mental health professionals going train to train, just riding along, because there's a lot of people with mental challenges on the trains, interacting with them. And if it escalates, then they'll call in the police. But the first line of interaction is one of, we're trained to orchestrate a mental challenge, not, hem you up, cuff you, and press you to the ground. Which is great.
Yeah, that's what most of these people need. They need counseling and they need medication. To completely change the subject, something I read this morning that I found interesting is that they, I think this was in the Atlantic, that psychologists have identified this new syndrome that they call Rebecca syndrome. And it's after the book and the movie Rebecca, which was about a woman who married a man who was a widower, and she became obsessed with his former wife, his dead wife. So what's happening in relationships now is you have what Rebecca syndrome is you are obsessed with your partner's ex to the point to where it's an irrational jealousy, that you're checking the phone to make sure that they're not talking to them. You feel constantly threatened anytime this ex is mentioned. And I'm curious as to whether or not either of you have ever done it or experienced it from a partner, somebody you're dating who was flipped out by who your ex was, and whether or not you were still talking to her or just completely obsessed that if her name came up, she'd froth at the mouth.
I gotta watch my conversation right now, my friend. Wow. Okay, I've had a sizable amount of that. Okay, so I've had a number of interactions where I have a great relationship with my ex-wife. We have nicknames. She's Exy, I'm Exy Bestie. So I end up bringing her a lot, and she and her love. The three of us hang out a lot. So I end up bringing her up a lot. But there's women I've seen who like, you sure do talk about her a lot. What's going on with them? So they're always asking a lot of questions. So what's going on? Are they going to move? Or like, what's the concern? But I understand. Well, I don't really understand it because I've never done that.
Dancing like you're on Dancing with the Stars right now. Get to the point. You were dancing around this. You were dancing around this.
Because I know it can be an issue. I've seen some folks in my life that had no issue with it at all, none whatsoever. Never, in fact, ask questions like, "Hey, are they going to do something?" And you can tell by the way they ask whether it's like with joy or whether it's, "So what's going on with your ex-wife?" It's a tone. You can read that tone right away. So I've had. So I'm just tap dancing. I
know you are. I know you're tap dancing.
It's happened to you a million times. What you're trying to say.
So tell us the story. Tell us the story.
Sammy Davis Jr. man. I'm tap dancing man.
I knew a man, Bojangles.
Oh my goodness.
Tell the story, for God's sake. Tell us the story of what? Nobody's going to be able to identify her. Tell us the story.
Okay. She was going into my social media circles to track certain things. And so at some point, she thought maybe I was seeing my ex-wife again. And you won't believe this. The reasoning was she saw a picture of her somewhere, a picture of her by herself at a pumpkin patch. And she said, "That's your shadow on the ground. Take a picture."
Oh, no.
I said, "What?" She said, "Yep, that's your shadow. I know your head." I said, "I wasn't even there that day. I for sure was not there. There's no way that was me." No.
Likely story, Ron.
That's your shadow.
I know your shadow, man.
I'm like, that is not me. But it was to that level. Let me just stop there.
Oh, that's just that's crazy. That's just flat out crazy. Greg, you got a story?
Well, it wasn't a pumpkin patch; it was a Christmas tree farm. But the story is very much the same. It's because my head is pointier, and no, I've never. I've been with my wife for over 30 years, and we've been married a long time, and I just haven't really had any exes in so long. the last ex I have is from 1983 or something. So yeah, it's not a, it's never really happened. And when I did have dated and had girlfriends and whatever, I was happy to let them live their lives after they left me, and they were generally happy to let me. I never understood the guys that carried a torch till the end of time. Like I remember a couple of guys in college I knew who, like, man, my girlfriend left me a couple of years ago, but I go see her all the time at her work and stuff. Hey, dude, maybe she's not digging it anymore. Maybe there was a reason, but guys are worse. People always say women are so bad, but guys can be just terrible about that. Like,
yeah.
So
guys become obsessed. Guys become obsessed,
and like
because guys don't open up as easily, and so when a guy opens up, and opens his heart up, and it gets hurt, I've seen that. Fortunately, I haven't been one of them, but I've seen that showing up at her work, parking in front of her house, who she's seeing.
That stuff. And I've seen my friends do it with ex-wives and stuff, and it's horrible. It's really, really, man, I'm gonna fucking catch her. You're like, whoa, you're getting kind of taxi driver here.
Let it go. Let it go.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go.
Except for Don, of course, who I believe was at that pumpkin patch, and I think the whole story.
Oh my God. You don't even know what that does to me, Proops.
It doesn't hold water. That's all.
That's your shadow on the ground.
It doesn't pass the smell test, as they say.
Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing that's bizarre, though. It looks exactly like it would be my shadow, though. So
really,
let me say that.
A big bald head.
Maybe it was Linus.
Wait, so where you guys? Pumpkin. So where you guys playing at? I'll start with you, Don. Where can folks see you?
I'll be next at Comedy and Music Sundays at Max. I'm doing a series of shows that I'm producing and being a part of at Max. We just did our launch show Tuesday night at Max in Fairfax, all pro comedy nights. A lot of lineups sometimes when you have a bunch of comedians can be off and on. So we're going for the solid pops, punchline style of opener, middle, headliner at Max on Tuesday nights. And then on Sundays, comedy and music. But our crown jewel show will be Redwood Nights on November 30th and New Year's Eve. We're going to do storytelling nights in the Redwoods, blankets, glass of wine. And I'd love both of you to join that show at some point on that storytelling nights there, as well as Max.
Where can people get tickets?
Go to, if you go to max19broadway.com, they can find all of these shows. Max, the Tuesday night, the Comedy and Music Sundays, and the Deer Park Villa Redwood Nights. And 100-year Redwoods have been right there for the longest. It's a beautiful storytelling nights.
Where is that? And is that in Marin or is that on the peninsula?
That's in Marin and Deer Park Villa. A beautiful location that's been known for years for giving weddings since the 40s and the 50s. But there's no wedding signage. It's just this beautiful place with this open place and a sweeping bar that's just outstanding. And I'm going to speak to both of you about appearing there.
I'd love to do it. That sounds like fun. I'd love to do it.
Yes.
And Greg, where's the tour?
We're in Texas this week, and then Louisiana. Then we come back home and do all of Southern California, and then in the beginning of December, Florida. Then I'm going to go to Paris and do the podcast at Shakespeare and Company on the 11th or 12th. I'll post that soon. That'll be on gregproops.com. And then back at San Francisco Punchline for New Year's week. Podcast the first night, and then stand up for 3 nights, ending on the 31st. And we're going to make another album there. This is that's my new album that I made last year at the Punchline. It's called French Drug Deal. You can get that on gregproops.com. I've also got a podcast called The Smartest Man in the World that I do with my wife, Jennifer. And I also have another one that I do with my wife, Jennifer, that I do all the talking, called the Greg Proops Film Club. She chooses the movies. We show a movie every month in LA, and then I do a film club about that one. The reason I plug that one is the last one I did is about the movie, The Innocents, which was a Halloween movie. But I didn't talk about the movie at all. I talked about the strike, the nature of show business, what's going on with the producers in a humorous way. And treating all of the producers and Zaslav, Sarandos, I'm forgetting all their names, the big four.
Bob Iger,
and then what's her name from Universal? doing them as horror movie characters, because the strike's dragging on now,
Still,
and they're
well, at
looking
least
at
they're
that. They've
talking.
made it.
They're
They made a
talking right now.
last best offer 3 days ago, and I get an email every day from SAG saying we're still looking at the offer. It's cost California $4.5 billion, and 45,000 people have lost their jobs. So I know that people in America are like, who cares about show business? But I have to listen to your stories about how you love a fictional character that flies in the sky and looks over you. So I'd like to talk. Sorry.
Well, people don't
I have to hear about you and your diner.
I was going to say, people don't think about all of the ancillary people, and maybe ancillary isn't the right word, but the caterers and people who work in wardrobe, and the people who are not in front of the camera who are making $20 million a film.
I mean,
Uber drivers,
pizza parlors. I mean, it's not even Yeah, of course, the wardrobe people and the crew are brutally hit. But anything, for instance, if you guys came to LA right now, you can get a table pretty much. You know what I mean? Like there's things are scandalous. So it's like, if you wanted to hire a car to go to the airport, for instance, it would be quite easy to do so, because everything's come to a grinding halt, and it's okay for the rich people in show business, but a lot of us are just trying to, whatever.
Make a living. Don, you had something you want to say?
Yeah, SAG after strong, but I'm going to rewind for just a second to mention two things. One is about Proops. The first thing is I'll be headlining the Throckmorton on November 18th only, doing the Never Too Late show.
Oh, great.
With the media from the Tonight Show and Johnny Carson Estate and Carson Entertainment Group, multimedia one-man show, one night only, Throckmorton, November 18th.
Awesome.
Very important. Besides that, Lupin. Greg Proops, you told me backstage at the wonderful outdoor San Francisco event we did with Brian about Lupin, and I have been tranced.
Did you see the new season?
Every inch, every second.
So good, isn't it?
Thank you.
You told me about it too, and I haven't had a chance to watch it. Now, what streaming service is it on?
Netflix.
So it's on Netflix. Okay. Yeah, you told me about it too, and I forgot.
He I don't know if he lives in France still, but I know they did another season. My wife told me it's gonna subsequent to the one they just put out on Netflix. Omar Sy is an actor comedian in France, and it was his idea to take these old Lupin stories about this gentleman jewel thief and turn him into a modern Black man living in Paris now. And he does all of the same thefts by the book, from the books that Lupin appears in. And he's absolutely a gentleman. No one gets hurt. There's all these, and it's the most clever, beautifully put together. It's not cheesy. It's not sensational. It's not gross or violent or anything. You could watch it with kids, and it's clever and it has a lot to say about, I think, class and race, as well as being a fantastic kind of jewel heist show.
So how many seasons? How many seasons exist?
How many what?
How many seasons?
3? 2?
3?
2?
2.
Okay. I will definitely
it's really good. He is absolutely charming and dashing.
Charming. That's the first word I was going to think of.
Yeah.
It's charming, and each time they supposedly got him, he's smart, and the mental gymnastics will outsmart when he hands someone back their handcuffs in a very classy fashion. It's just very well done, and it's not over the top about the race blaze, but it lays within and empowers this Black leader, in terms of the lead character in this dynamic of this world. It's just absolutely fascinating. I can't thank you enough for that series.
And I'll tell you, I get the Netflix thing. They send me a couple of times a week in terms of, touting or plugging some show that they're streaming. And I never heard of this. I never got anything from Netflix. Saying to watch this. I mean, nothing.
It's a little undersung. I mean, there was an interview with him a few months ago on the Hollywood Reporter. They did one of those Zoom calls, and everybody's like, so, where did you get the idea and stuff? And he went, I thought of it. They couldn't understand that not only is he the star and the producer, it was his idea. Like, he went, I'm going to take the Lupin. By the way, there's a million French movies about Lupin over the years. He wears a top hat and a monocle and the gloves and the evening wear. And they've updated it. So I just think it's smashing. It's really smashing.
All right. You sold me.
Well, I'm glad you remembered it, Don, because it's so I think it's an exhilarating show. It's pretty
It really
exciting and really funny and sort of inside and kind of. I think you'll like it, Brian. I don't like to recommend shows that are boring. Like people go like watch Game of Thrones. I'm like, I couldn't watch Game of Thrones.
I tried.
If you can, I love
Thank
it.
you.
Good for you.
Is there
It's
some,
got
I'm
dragons
saying
and
there's something
shit.
wrong with me because of the fact that everybody, yeah, you ever get in that situation where everybody is crazy about a movie or a show, and then you try to watch it and wonder what's wrong with you? Like, the most recent version of that is La La Land. Did you see La La Land? I mean, everybody was crazy and saying about La La. Thank you.
So awful.
And I couldn't.
I liked it. I loved it.
Superhero movies for me.
What's wrong with you guys?
I saw Ms.
liked
Marvel
Black
last
Panther,
night.
but Black Panther had 15 endings, and also the same. Not the second one. The second one, honey, it wasn't that good.
Oh no, the second one was great. Are you kidding me?
See,
the second one was Shuri.
We're all over the place.
Black Panther. It was about death and about loss and about grief. I mean, I thought it was great. I really thought it was great. One. Yeah, I thought they both were good. Now I saw the new Captain Marvel movie in a press screening last night. And the plus is you don't see many movies that have 3 female leads. And they're the leads of the movie, and one of them is white, one of them is Muslim, and one of them is African American. You don't see that, and so props to Marvel for that. But it was just sensory overload. Yeah. You know what I mean? Where there's like there's too much going. If I was an epileptic, I would have been like in a seizure. 5 minutes into this movie, I would have been in the aisle having a seizure. I mean, it was like that. It was like it's just sensory overload. It was too much of give me more story. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a 7. I thought the performances were great, so nothing to take away from the performances. It was just too much. That's my takeaway, and it's my opinion. And now I'll open up the paper and I'll see, no, I won't. I was gonna say I'll see.
All right. Brian Copeland derides new Marvel movie.
No, I'm not gonna deride.
Too many women talking at once, says he.
All right, let me throw my plug in. On Sunday, I'll be doing my show on depression, The Waiting Period, at the Marsh, San Francisco, and it is free. I do it a couple of times a month, free to the public. It's like a suicide prevention thing. It's a show that is funny as well as informative. So if you struggle or you have a family member or friends who struggle, come on down. It's at noon. It's a matinee. Show runs about 75 minutes, so you're out of there by 1:30, 1:15, 1:30. But come on out. This is the 9th season we've been able to do this, 9th year. And we do it because we get donations from the public and donations from some companies, some corporations. Second thing, and this is a big announcement, during the shutdown, I wrote my first crime novel. And it is a novel that is called Outraged, and it has been bought and it's going to be published on May 1st. And right before we started recording, I got an email from my publisher saying that pre-orders, which was supposed to start on April 23rd, they've started them now. So effective today, if you want to pre-order the book, you can do it. Just go to Amazon, and it's time. My detective, my protagonist, is an investigative reporter in San Francisco, African American, and his sister, who's an African American San Francisco homicide detective. And the premise is that someone in the Bay Area is killing police officers who have shot unarmed Black people and not been punished. And so they have got to find out who's doing it and why. And that's what the case
is. It contemporary?
It is. It's all contemporary.
It's not.
It's contemporary. It's the first in a series. What I hope will be a continuing series. I'm most of the way through the.
Can you tell us the name of the hero?
The name of the hero is Topher Davis. His name is Topher Davis. His name is Christopher, but he found that he got more callbacks in interviews as Topher Davis because it sounds whiter than Chris Davis does. So on a resume, it sounds whiter, so he would get called in for interviews then. But
congratulations, man!
Thank you. Yeah,
major congrats on that.
So that's what I did during the shutdown. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't perform anything. So
all I did was cry. I hate you. People learn to play the trumpet and speak Portuguese. You wrote a novel.
I wrote it. I didn't learn how to make sourdough bread.
I gained weight and cried.
I gained 40 pounds, man. I gained 40 pounds during the shutdown because I've been going to the gym every day. I've lost like 32 of it. but I gained 40 pounds during the shutdown. Just sitting on my butt, sitting on my butt, writing and watching movies. That's mainly what it is that I did. Netflix and everything else is what I did. I didn't get a Peloton. I didn't do that. They're in bad shape.
You wrote that novel.
I wrote that.
You did, buddy.
That's a big thing.
I wrote the novel. So, Don Reed, Greg Proops, hey, thanks, guys. I really appreciate you doing this. And we'll do it again soon.
My pleasure.
And by the way, Greg, your podcast, tell me when your podcasts drop, and so folks know.
I just had one drop a couple days ago. It's on gregproops.com and the Sosta Film Club, and everything will be revealed there. The New Year's week and all that jazz.
Is there.
I have Jill Maragos and Daria Lakshmirianan with me at the Punchline. I try to have all women on the show because you know how clubs are.
Yeah,
right.
I know.
You'll be three-guyed to death until you die, hearing about how 30-something guys like to watch pornography.
Oh, that's a story we didn't get to, by the way. And I will throw this in because we got a quick minute. Did you see that story about Mike Johnson?
My God!
House that he and his son monitor each other's porn intake. The new Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, and his son, his 17-year-old son, they monitor each other's porn intake. And what the deal is, about? Well, here's how this works. He has put a program on all of their devices, their iPhones, their iPads, their desktop computers, all of their computer devices, anywhere where you can access a website. And what the deal is at the end of every week, it automatically sends a record to your accountability partner listing all of the websites that you visited over the course of the previous week. And they do that to make sure that they aren't watching porn. So his 17-year-old son gets his, and he gets a 17-year-old son, so they can look at all of the websites that they've. And if a porn site comes up, then it's time for a conversation. It's time for a conversation. Isn't that? It's just twisted. I mean, if you're going to do that, why would you do that with your 17-year-old kid? And what's your 17-year-old kid going to do? Dad, what is booty liquors? What is
right? What is
bootyliquors.com?
Yeah. Who are the young men of the night? It's so evangelical because it's so horrible, and like everything I find with them, it turns morality on its head.
Yeah.
As opposed to the honest thing where you might say, son, don't, get crazy with that. Instead, you're a spy, and now there's a third party. And let me just throw another thing out, Brian, since you're a journalist. Say you were the third highest elected official in the free world. That would be the Speaker of the House. Mm-hmm. And now we know that a third party has access to all of your computer stuff. Yep. Mm-hmm. Did he undo it for being Speaker, or is he still on it? We know today that Ivanka used her business email to communicate fraudulent stuff with Jared. Really? The thing that they were so freaked out about Hillary doing, right? They were doing it too. So I'm asking you just open question. Mike Johnson has this program. Now do the third parties get to sell that information to other foreign entities, or,
Right, exactly.
How hard is it to hack into that program?
It's a security issue. Yeah, it's not hard at all. A 14-year-old could do it. I can't, but a 14-year-old could.
A 14-year-old could. Speaking of Ivanka, it's just I just found it laughable how she wanted to get out of testifying. She was subpoenaed to testify, ordered to testify today, and her excuse for not wanting to testify was that it was during the school week. She couldn't testify during a school week because it would be too difficult on her family. Excuse me, you got like nannies. You were going all over the world when your dad was president, but now suddenly, how many people are able to get out of court with a subpoena because of that? Because kids got, I come, but my kids got. Can we do it on Saturday? My kids got school.
And she was at a Kardashian party not 2 weeks ago in Los Angeles.
Really?
Yeah. It was at all in the gossip columns in LA. There she was with Kim and all that, and but it's really hard for me because the kids, I got to look after them. Yeah, you don't have any help at all.
Yeah, none, zero. But that's like the first time you ever read Goop? Gwyneth Paltrow's
Oh God, yes,
Gwyneth Paltrow's e-newsletter Goop. I started subscribing a couple of years ago just for giggles because she's so completely out of touch sometimes.
Yep.
So the first one that I read, she was talking about, I'm a single mom and I don't know how single moms do it. So I talked to some of my friends who are single moms to find out how they do it. And her single moms she talked to were like Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, right.
Madonna.
Right.
And how do you do it, Madonna? How are you able to pull it off as a single mom?
My army of au pairs, I used to make fun of her on the show, and then I quit doing it on the podcast in the early 10s because of Goop. And she wrote this article about the very same thing, about how hard it was. And I said, my mother was the oldest of 8 from a Mississippi farm family whose family came over in a Model T Ford. Anyway, to make a long story short, she had 4 children and 2 crappy husbands. And I don't remember her writing a column at any point. You know what I mean? We still got fed and she made clothes for us. And the idea that it's harder for you than it is for someone else is wow, dude. Even if you think that, keep it to yourself. You know what I mean? And I remember one of my producers went, somebody didn't go to sensitivity training.
Well,
she got an award the other night on some fashion magazine gave her an award for something, and all she does is peddle quackery and
well, she had women bleaching their vaginas
and potions, and
she had women bleaching their vaginas.
Right. And the egg, there was the egg, and then
the egg
there was a candle that smelled like her Snoop, and she's the most self-interested. And by the way, she hasn't been in a picture for ages, right? But years ago, she was in that picture called Country Strong or some bullshit. And who was in it? Tim, a country star. And
Tim McGraw?
Yeah, Tim McGraw.
Okay.
And
why do I know that? I don't listen to country.
Me neither, but
I have no idea.
I know you'd know his name if I said it. Anyway, he was decent in the movie, and there was another actress in it too who was good, a younger actress. And Gwyneth thinks she can sing, right? So she sings her own songs, but they gave her the exact wrong role in the movie. She's supposed to be like a Loretta Lynn, I'm Too High. Ronnie Blakely in Nashville or whatever, I'm a superstar, but whoa, shit, when I'm off stage, I get crazy.
Yeah.
But she's never done that in her life. So watching her pretend to be high, it just means she was kind of tired in scenes. She'd be like, oh. And there was an interview where they said, well, how did you study up for being a troubled, drug-addled country star? And she went, I've never really been that high, so I called Robert Downey and asked him what it was like to be a drug addict. Bob, it's me, Winnie. What's it like when you're high?
Oh my God.
Yeah,
she's definitely not a method actress. She's not.
Who would even say that? You know what I mean? It's just oh God.
Crazy.
And thank God she's not in pictures anymore, because wow.
Well, she was good in the again, superhero movies. The last thing she did was Avengers Endgame.
Pepper Potts and all that.
Pepper Potts. That was the last thing she did. Is Iron Man's wife, Iron Man's widow. I don't mean to be a spoiler, but Iron Man's widow. So
can I ask
sorry,
Brian.
Yeah.
You're running in Berkeley or San Francisco at the Marsh?
Oh, I'm at the Marsh in San Francisco Sunday at noon.
Okay, because I forgot to mention East 14th, Berkeley. I'm running East 14th in Berkeley for 8 shows.
Oh, I'm going to come and see it again.
Awesome.
If you've not seen that, it's a great show. It is a wonderful show. It's your 14th anniversary, right?
14th anniversary, exactly. 14th birthday party, I'm calling it, whatever.
I'll come out and see it, definitely. Cool. Well, thanks, guys. Again, please come back and visit me soon, okay?
Love you, buddies.
Okay.
See you soon.
We'll talk to you later. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye. All right, that's going to do it for us. I will check you out next week, next Thursday. If you like the podcast, there are a couple of things that you can do to support us. One is if you're listening to us, whatever platform you're listening to us on, go to where the reviews are and leave us a 5-star review. It makes it easier for people to find the show. The second thing is if you're watching us over YouTube, we're trying to get 1,000 subscribers. I think we got like 350 or something like that right now. 1,000 subscribers. It's absolutely free, because once we get 1,000 subscribers, rather than recording this Wednesday and dropping it Thursday, we can do this live. So that way you can be a part of the show. So do me a favor and subscribe. All right. So again, my new book, my first crime novel, Outrage, is available for pre-order on Amazon today. So I hope that you'll check it out and grab a copy and support me. I would appreciate it. Until next time, be kind to your neighbor. He knows where you live.